All right. We are here with head track and field coach Sarah Ingram, assistant track and field coach Jamey Harris, and student athlete Carson Smith, recapping some of the action that happened this weekend. The Jacks were at 3 meets down in the San Diego area. They were at the Aztec Invite, hosted by San Diego State, the Mangrove Invitational, and the CCA Preview, hosted by Cal State San Marcos, and the Point Loma Invite in La Jolla, hosted by Point Loma. First off, Coach Ingram, let's just start with you, kind of detailing what you saw this weekend. A lot of performances. I think about 6 marks on the school record list were improved upon. A couple national provost standards were hit. Altogether, a really, really solid weekend.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there was a lot of new records etched in history this weekend. 6 different top 10 marks in program history. There's a handful of athletes that are all ranked in the top 15 in the nation right now, so that's pretty exciting coming out of this weekend. We got 3 provisional qualifying marks for nationals at this point. And some of those athletes are working each weekend to bring those marks down even faster and get faster, deeper qualifying marks for nationals. And just a ton of personal records, season bests and a lot of lifetime bests this weekend across all the different events, all the different event groups in track and field. So it was just a really exciting weekend for us. For the most part, most of the days that we competed, we got pretty good weather, which is sort of a quite an accomplishment in itself this season. And I think that really allowed a lot of our athletes to really step up and really perform and show how fit and how trained they are, and just at a level that they weren't able to do yet this season. So it was a really big weekend for us. Really good energy.
Yeah, and I know when we talked over the weekend, when you were kind of detailing us some of the highlights of each meet, you had talked about, I don't think I've ever seen this many athletes that have been improving this early in the season. What do you think has been the difference this year just in the team that's allowed that to kind of be possible?
You know, I think there's a lot of different things that go into it. But I think right now, we really have a good team culture. Across the board, I feel like the athletes feel really supported, and they've really bought into the training. Everybody seems to be really excited about what they're doing in training and at meets. We haven't had, knock on wood, as many of the team culture issues as we've had in the past some years with internal drama and things like that. And I think that makes a big difference for the team as a whole in terms of just having a really positive vibe, really meshing together and gelling together and supporting each other, even though it is an individual sport in the sense of, you run 100 meter by yourself. It really helps when you go to that starting line and you feel the support of your teammates. And I think that's something that the team is really feeling right now. And as everybody is hitting improvements in their marks, it just kind of snowballs in a really positive way. Everybody just keeps feeding off of each other. Every time a new event happens and there's, 5 distance athletes in one heat that are hitting a PR, it just ignites the whole team. Everybody is so excited to move on to that next event and hit their PR in that next event. So just a lot of really good things, I think, that are culminating in terms of getting those really good performances. And, like we mentioned before, I hate having to talk about weather so much when it comes to our sport, but it does play a big part in terms of, the performances that are able to come out of each weekend. And when we've had such crappy weather for most of the season, we finally get a good weekend with multiple opportunities on multiple days to compete. It's just kind of like the floodgates have been opened, and now everybody is just doing really well.
And so, as we said earlier, we had 2 new athletes join us on the hitting provisional standards this weekend. Joy Hano had a big PR by over almost 0.2 of a second in the 100 hurdles, second all time in school history, only, I think, 0.05 of a second off the school record. Right now, I believe she's 7th nationally, first in the conference. Talk about the jump she made this weekend and just how impressive that was.
We've all known that it's coming. It's just a matter not of if it'll happen, but when it would happen. But it was certainly a big breakthrough for Joy. Very exciting. She also just surpassed her coach in terms of their best marks as collegiate athletes, and surpassed her on the top 10 list. So that was also pretty exciting, both for Joy and for Kate. She's very fit, and she's been working really hard. And she's come in this year running times that she was running at the end of last season. So she's really just kind of picked up from where she left off and continued to make really big strides. And we know that even though she's hit a really big PR, we know she's still capable of going even faster. Her coaches have predicted that she could be running in the high 13s and ultimately trying to secure that spot at nationals this year. Once she gets a provisional qualifying mark, that doesn't necessarily mean she goes. She still has to be in the top 18 in the country at the end of the season. So, that's kind of what she's looking for next, is just to keep chipping away at that time and keep bringing it down into those 13-second ranges.
And Jamey, for you had, obviously Iris had another big jump this weekend in the 800, 151.06, jumped to 6th all time on the school record list. I think he's 6th nationally and 1st in the conference. Talk about the first off, how his race went. I mean, I don't know if you were at San Diego when that happened.
Yeah, I was. I was the the one driving the minivan and shuttling people back and forth between San Diego State and Point Loma. So I spent probably half the day in the van. But yeah, I was there and watching the race, and he just, the reason that we entered a couple people at that Aztec Invitational is because we felt like they needed that level of competition to get the best out of themselves. And it turned out perfectly, both with Carson's PR in the 1500 earlier that day, and then with Iris's race that afternoon. It was just good competitive field. A lot of top D1 and D2 competitors in there. And he just kind of went for it. He went in with a positive attitude and raced aggressively and gave himself a shot to try to win the race. And, when you do that, usually the times will end up fast.
Awesome. And then Carson, for you, I know you also were racing at San Diego State, like Jamey said, and coming off of the night before, you ran a season best in the 5K, ran 14:39, and then to come back the next day, run a career best in the 1500, 3:54, in a really competitive field with a lot of Division I talent. Just talk about the mentality over the weekend for you and what you felt you got out of this weekend.
Mm-hmm. We've kind of known for a while now that we've entered the heat of the season. We had the smaller meets in the beginning where you can kind of bust your rust out a little bit. And yeah, so this weekend was kind of everyone was kind of we're getting down to business now. And I think everyone went into the whole weekend with that sort of mentality. So it was really easy to feed off of each other. And over at the San Marcos Invitational, it was a super, super good field. We had guys come from Williams, which I'm not exactly sure where they're from, but they ran super, super fast, a bunch of 14 flat guys. And I was told that the pace was going to go out at 69s, which I was all right, I can hold on to 69s. And then it was 10 minutes before the race, Shay from San Marcos, who was pacing, he was no, I'm going to take it out at 68s. And so in my head, I'm just I don't know if I can hold 68, so we're just going to go out there and see what happens. So overall, that first evening, Friday evening, was kind of disappointing, but I was really glad to come away with a second off my PR and feel disappointed. That's kind of a cool feeling in itself. And then I was talking to Jamey after the race, and I was I just ran a 5K. I don't know if I want to go and try and run an all-out 1500 tomorrow. I was talking I might just do the 8 at Point Loma. And I thought about it that night, and I was I didn't come here to complain and bitch out for lack of better words, but I was I'm here, I'm down here, might as well go for it. So I was all right, let's go to San Diego State and see what happens. And yeah, San Diego was an awesome race, super awesome facility. And the race was just perfect. Felt super strong the whole time, which was really awesome after racing all out the night before. And really gave me a little bit of confidence. And I think all of Saturday, the entire team across the board had extraordinary performances, especially after competing the night before. It was really awesome to see. Not everyone really competed to their highest abilities on Friday night over at San Marcos. And Saturday, everyone, it was either a season best, a PR, or it was just awesome racing all day. And it was just really awesome to see. and everyone was kind of feeding off that energy, and it just led to a really positive and awesome atmosphere.
Awesome. And you guys alluded to this a little bit.
Wuss out,
Yeah.
weenie out, wimp out, be timid. A few options for next time.
All right.
I think that works. We'll bleep it out, don't worry.
Yeah.
Getting back into it a little bit, I know you guys you talked about getting into the meat of the season. Now we're really kind of in that stage where people are starting to heat up. This next weekend is obviously another big weekend for you guys. You guys are going to be down in the Bay Area at the Mike Fanelli Track Classic at San Francisco State, as well as the Stanford Invite out in Palo Alto. Jamey, for you, first off, just kind of talk about your expectations. I know Mike Fanelli is always a big distance meet. There's always multiple heats of the 5K. It's a great environment. It's a great energy, great place for people to PR. Just talk about what your expectations are this weekend and if anything we can expect from your guys.
Yeah, most people this weekend are kind of racing at the top of their range because it's such a distance-heavy meet, having formerly been the San Francisco State Distance Carnival. And it's one that we pointed for all year. So, Carson will move up to the 10K. We've got 3 other guys in the 10K, a couple women. Rosa and Sadie will both be running the 10K. Sadie will run more than just 100 meters of it this year. And it's also a good opportunity for our steeplechasers who don't always have great opportunities. In fact, sometimes that event just isn't even really offered. Same with the 10K. And then a lot of our kind of people who are kind of back and forth between the 1500 and 5K are going to focus on the 5K. And then I really like the distance medley relay that we get to run on Saturday. And I think as a team event, it's fun. The distance runners rarely get to run relays because the longest relay at most championship meets is 400 meters. So it's a good opportunity for them. It's a good kind of team building and also character building event because nobody wants to wimp out when they're running for their team and for their relay team. So that's kind of what the focus is on Saturday is coming back to run those distance medley legs. It's good practice for when we get to the conference championships and people have to do heats and finals, or people are going to double back and run the 5K after running other events. So it's a great atmosphere. It's a huge meet. And they're very athlete and coach friendly. They let people get down onto the infield. So there's really good energy and everyone is there with a goal of trying to run fast. So races are typically not super tactical. It's just, get going from the gun and try to lay down some fast times. And so all of that kind of lends itself to really, really good performances.
Awesome. And Carson, you're running your first 10K. Has Jamey given you any advice for how you want to approach that? Is that something you guys have talked about yet? Or what are you expecting going into this, knowing this is going to be your first 10K on the track?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it too much. I honestly have no idea what to expect. I don't know. In my mind, I've made the 10K seem really easy, but I honestly have no idea what to expect. Personally, I'd like to go out a little more conservative. I'm looking out there trying to go sub 30, but I mean, I could go out there and run like 30 and end up being like the happiest guy in the world. So just kind of really want to see what it's like. My first, like you said, first time running a 10K on the track. So kind of really out there for the experience and kind of know what to expect because I'm also running the 10K at the conference championships. So this is kind of my first little taste at it and know what to expect come like May.
And then Sarah, for you, talking about Stanford a little bit, there's probably going to be, I'm assuming you're going to have at least a handful of athletes competing over at the farm. Just kind of talk about that meet and what you're expecting from whoever's going to be competing there.
Sure. We'll actually have a pretty small group over at Stanford. The San Francisco State used to be Distance Carnival is, like Jamey said, a pretty heavy distance-oriented meet. They don't actually contest any of the throwing events. So we're going to have all of our throwers over at Stanford on Friday and Saturday. And then we're only going to have a few of our sprinter hurdlers at Stanford competing on Friday. And those are really just those top-level athletes that we're really trying to give them more competition. They haven't been getting enough competition in their races, specifically in the 100 and 400 hurdles for Joy and Isabel. They've both come away with a lot of wins in those races and not as much competition as we'd like. So we're going to try to give them a little bit more competitive opportunities there, and just a chance to be pushed a little bit more so that they can continue to bring down those times in search of national qualifying marks that will go. But we'll have the majority of our power athletes competing on Saturday at the San Francisco State Mike Fanelli Track Classic. So we're just looking to continue with bringing down the sprint times week by week, and continuing the PR train that's been rolling right now.
Awesome. That's all I got.
Just one question I had is just, regarding the fact, obviously, like, there was kind of the confluence of events, but regarding the CCAA preview, I was wondering, what do you feel like you took away from that? I mean, obviously, there's sort of just the obvious of getting to see it, but what were your feelings come away from seeing that facility, getting to kind of have that look ahead, and is there any adjustments you want to make to that, things that you kind of learned from that experience that you feel like can help you as you look ahead, obviously, to season's end?
Sure. Like you said, it's always nice to see what that facility's like. This is the first time that most of us, including myself, have ever been to that facility. And just to be direct, we were a little bit underwhelmed, with the facility itself. They don't have any bleachers, any grandstands, or any sort of seating at the facility. It certainly, at least at this first Invitational, didn't feel like a facility that would be a conference championship facility. But it's not anything I think that's really going to change our race tactics or how we approach the competition itself. It's more of just having that mental picture in your head going into a big meet of what is this going to look like? What is it going to feel like? What is the energy going to be like? Where are there going to be people that are cheering for you? Where are there not allowed to be people cheering for you? What is the wind like? In certain events that are affected more than others by the wind. What direction does it usually flow from? Where is that going to affect you, on the backstretch of the 400 or the 400 hurdles? Where can that help you in a jumping event, if that's at your back? So it's pretty minor stuff, but more than anything, I think it's just the mental preparation of what does this meet feel like, and walking into that stadium and not having it be the first time that you've ever been there, not having to find out the ins and the outs of how far do I have to go to get to a restroom or to a warm-up field. Just the little things that are going to help you feel more prepared when you enter that competition, so that you can really focus on the small details that you need to be at your best.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Awesome.